Okay, so, ready to dive deep. We're talking In New W, Hello Higher Self by Bunny Michael.
Love it.
You ever feel like, especially if you kind of grew up online, that we're all just figuring this whole be your true self thing out as we go? Like, no instruction manual for the digital age?
Totally. And Michael nails it with this idea of learned hierarchical beliefs.
LHBs, right?
Yeah, those sneaky messages we've been absorbing forever telling us we're not enough.
Ugh, those. And it feels like the internet just amplifies all that.
100%. It's like a breeding ground for those LHBs, always pushing us to be more, do more, have more.
And then you end up scrolling through everyone else's highlight reel and feeling totally inadequate, right? I love how Michael uses their own story, growing up queer in a conservative Texas family. Talk about feeling like an outsider.
Right. And it gets to the heart of what they want us to remember. You are enough right now, exactly as you are.
It's such a powerful message, but man, getting there is a journey. They even talk about getting caught up in that whole social media game, chasing likes.
And realizing it's empty, right? Does it bring true fulfillment?
It's like that saying, comparison is the thief of joy, and social media is like the grand heist.
For real. Michael really unpacks those invisible hierarchies it creates, how we lose sight of our own worth chasing external validation.
So how do we break free? Thankfully, they have practical advice for navigating the online world, like that idea of hitting pause before you post anything. Ask yourself, who's talking right now? My true self, or those LHVs?
Such a good one. How often do we actually do that, though? It's so easy to react impulsively online, but that post, it leaves a digital footprint.
Even if you delete it later, right? Oh, and what about those times you get called out online? Instead of getting defensive, Michael's like, see it as a gift, a chance to grow.
Whoa, yeah. I never thought about it like that.
Me neither. It's like, instead of a personal attack, it's an opportunity to look at your own LHBs, choose compassion for yourself and the person calling you out.
Totally. It's about recognizing none of us are perfect. We're all learning here. And honestly, sometimes the best thing, unfollow, block, mute. Social media isn't some utopia. You're allowed to protect your energy.
Create your own space. And this is where it gets interesting. Michael dives into creativity, but they flip the script. They say everyone is an artist, self-expression is our birthright, not some exclusive club.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they take on those LHBs telling us we're not creative enough, not talented enough. They even share this hilarious story about their first performance as Bunny Rabbit.
Yeah.
Just pure, unapologetic self-expression.
Giving themselves permission to go for it. That's what we need more of.
Absolutely. It goes back to self-worth. You don't need external validation to create. Honoring that inner spark, that's what matters.
And those creative voices, they do matter. It's about tapping into that wellspring within all of us.
Okay.
Buckle up, because Michael tackles one of those deeply ingrained LHBs that our worth is tied to productivity. Coming from a family of hard workers, they get it.
And that belief has huge consequences, right? Not just for us as individuals, but for society. People who don't fit that narrow definition of productive. They're undervalued, overlooked.
And Michael debunks that self-made myth. Success is never just about individual effort. We need support systems, mentors, even a little luck.
It's so true. We're not machines, we have limits. They even talk about burning out, needing their spouse to encourage a break.
Because we're taught rest is a reward, something you earn, right?
Right. It's not a luxury, it's essential. We deserve it simply because we exist. Self-compassion, realizing you're worthy of care and rest, regardless of outcome. And speaking of ingrained patterns, the book then goes deep into family dynamics.
It's wild how those early relationships, they're like the foundation, right? And they stick with us, even when we're all grown up. Michael is so honest about their own childhood, feeling responsible for their mom's happiness, always chasing their parents' approval. I bet that hits home for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. It's like those early experiences, good or bad, they become our model for love, for boundaries, for how we communicate. And without realizing it, we carry those patterns into our adult lives.
Subconsciously recreating them in our relationships, our work, everything.
Exactly. But here's the good news. We have a choice. We can look at those patterns, challenge them. It's never too late to kind of reparent ourselves, give ourselves what we needed back then.
Love that. And speaking of relationships, Michael gets real about how LHBs mess with our love lives too. That story about the bad Tinder date who turns out to be their neighbor, hilarious but so relatable.
Oh, totally. It shows how we project our insecurities onto others, see flaws that aren't even really there. And with dating these days, it's so easy to get caught up in the fairy tale, the happily ever after trap.
Right, like every rom-com ends with a wedding kiss, problem solved.
And Michael dismantles that, thankfully. Marriage isn't the ultimate goal or validation. Historically, it wasn't even always about love, right? And even now, that fairy tale ignores the reality of long-term relationships, the work involved.
So true. It's not like you get married and all your insecurities vanish. Michael even talks about realizing that after getting married themselves,
It's about realizing true love starts within. It can't be found in a ring or a ceremony. It's about cultivating self-love first. Knowing you're worthy, regardless of your relationship status.
yes. And that leads to another great point. Breakups don't have to be failures. Michael's like, what if we saw them as chances to grow? It's okay to grieve the expectations, to admit it wasn't right for one or both people.
It takes courage to walk away sometimes, even when it hurts.
Because you deserve to be in a relationship that lights you up, not one that dims your shine.
Exactly. Self-worth is choosing yourself, trusting you'll be okay, you'll heal, and you're worthy of love no matter what.
Speaking of love, let's talk about friendship. It's so important, but it feels like society puts it on the back burner compared to romance or family. That story about the childhood friend, their bond ending because of boy, ouch. Those LHBs, seeking validation, they even mess with our friendships.
It's true. We're conditioned to prioritize romantic love above all else. We celebrate anniversaries, weddings, but what about celebrating our best friends?
And there's barely any research on friendships compared to other relationships. Like, they're undervalued by science, too.
We internalize that message, that they're less than. But Michael says, no way. Make new friends, nurture the ones you have, recognize how vital they are.
Friendship is a gift to ourselves and the people we love platonically. Okay, shifting gears a bit, Michael also tackles a tough but crucial topic, race and racism. No tiptoeing around it, they go straight to how those LHBs show up in this area, often without us even knowing it.
It's uncomfortable, right? But so important.
Michael talks about growing up brown in a mostly white town, feeling pressure to fit in, to distance from their own heritage. Sadly, that's not unique to their experience.
And it highlights how insidious racism is. That internalized racism, it's like self-hatred, and it can be so damaging.
And they connect this to the larger issue of white privilege, how it often works invisibly to keep those hierarchies in place.
Michael isn't afraid to make us squirm a little, to remind us that dismantling racism is inner work and outer work.
Self-reflection, acknowledging our biases, and then taking action to challenge racism everywhere.
We all have a part to play in creating a more just and equitable world. Speaking of deeply ingrained societal stuff that messes with us, the book also dives into beauty standards.
It's like this constant pressure of not good enough when it comes to our bodies.
Right, and it's exhausting.
Michael gets into how those standards have been used forever to control people, especially women, people of color. And the worst part, they keep changing, so you can never win.
It's true. And they make a great point about how much of this is tied to consumerism.
Totally.
Like, their entire industry's banking on us feeling insecure, so we'll buy products, get procedures, all to fix something that's not even broken.
It's a setup. But Michael reminds us, we're not just bodies. They share about their own thing with body hair, the pressure to shave, especially as a woman. But ultimately, like, who made that rule?
It's about taking back our bodies, realizing all bodies are worthy, however they are, standards be damned.
Yes, loving what you got. And that self-love, it's everywhere in this book. Michael's big on self-care, but not as a reward. It's an act of revolution, recognizing your worth.
Love that.
They talk about burning out, how even their self-care became another way to judge themselves.
Oh, I feel that.
It's about really listening to yourself, your needs, your limits, not some should-do list.
Absolutely. Giving yourself permission to rest, to say no without the guilt trip. You're worthy of care, period, no matter your output.
That's a game changer. And there's so much freedom in that, just letting go of proving yourself, allowing yourself to be.
Totally.
And that freedom, it's like the whole point, right? We talk about digital life, relationships, work, but it all comes back to self-love, self-acceptance.
That's what makes this book resonate. It's not just telling you what to do. It's a journey, unlearning those crappy LHBs that hold us back.
Connecting with that inner wisdom, that higher self.
And they remind us it's lifelong, this growth thing. There's no finish line. It's about the journey itself, trusting you're right where you're supposed to be.
Love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Hello, Higher Self, what's sticking with you? What's one little thing you can do today to quiet those LHBs, connect with your own higher self, and just be you fully and authentically?